Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our live demo session on end-to-end workspace lifecycle management. My name is Silvio, and I'm a sales executive here at Syskit. And today we'll be joined by two of my colleagues. We'll be joined by Daniel, who is our product manager, and Alexandra, who is our product designer. And they will be actually showing you how Syskit Point can help the IT teams gain better control over their Microsoft 365 workspace lifecycle. So many of you already know us as a company, but just for those who doesn't, let me briefly give you an introduction to Syskit. So Syskit is a software company, and we've been in the market for more than 13 years now. We create innovative software solutions for Microsoft 365 and SharePoint on-premise. This is where we actually got famous. And we currently have over 3,500 customers all across the world. And I'm talking about, from SMBs up to the large corporations with a couple of hundreds thousands of users. Now, before we start with the actual webinar, let me just give you a few housekeeping rules here. So all registrants will receive a recording of this demo session, well, within a few days after the demo, or well, next week at latest. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a fine Q&A session with Alexandra and Daniel here. So please use this Q&A function, to ask any questions. Don't be shy. We really like to hear all of your opinions and answer to, well, whatever questions you might have. So, okay, for the next step, let me tell you a sentence or two about the Syskit Point tool. So this is a governance platform for Microsoft 365 that helps you get a better control over user access, inventory, lifecycle management, and all other important governance topics across different Microsoft 365 workspaces. Okay, so I've been talking for a lot now. Maybe it's time to introduce our presenters. First, we have Daniel. He is a product manager here at Syskit, and he has over 10 years of experience focusing on solving customers' problems, delivering value, and delivering high quality products. On the other hand, we have Alexandra. She's a product designer at Syskit, and she has over 5 years of experience in designing complex SaaS solutions. She's basically responsible for the entire design process here at our company. So without any further delay, Daniel, are you ready to start?
Thank you, Silvia. So let me start by sharing my screen. So just, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Daniel,
okay.
We can see it.
Perfect. So just, let's say once again, thanks everyone for joining this call. First of all, let's say this is the first of what we hope to be kind of many of these Syskit Point product-oriented webinars. So as Silvia already did mention, please feel free to write any kind of questions as well as feedback on how you find this sessions. So basically, from our side, you can send us an email to feedback@syskit.com or just put it in the chat or in this Q&A session. So, but for today, what we are going to be talking about is, let's say, challenges and best practices from what we found during our research. And let's say, as we see more and more organizations are seeing benefits of enabling their end users to request new workspaces, end-to-end lifecycle management for workspaces is kind of emerging as one of the hot topics. So today we'll cover that in more depth. So as said, we'll go through the challenges, what we had identified during our research, as well as some of the best practices, how to implement end-to-end lifecycle management in your organization. Also, we are going to show you how Syskit Point can help you, let's say now, and even what's coming next. So from our side, that's kind of what we are going to be sharing today. So, but now it's time to jump into what we prepare for you today. So just going into this with a bit more details, during the last year, we've been doing a lot of research, mostly into what makes a good rollout of governance and lifecycle management among our clients, but also among clients, let's say, non-Syskit customers. And maybe to no surprise to ours, let's say there is no silver bullet, unfortunately for this, because there is no one size fits all, and every organization has its own processes. But that being said, one of the things that did pop up during these interviews is the fact that IT teams that have successfully rolled out governance and lifecycle management did it in a way that was very easy and intuitive for their end users. So we dug a bit deeper into that. And when discussing this in details with those teams, they said that all of them did have a, let's say, detailed roadmap on, let's say, what that rollout is going to look like. And although there were different requirements from multiple stakeholders, like, I don't know, legal, security, and others, at the end, it came down to the fact that business was always pushing their end users to find an easier way. And to that sense, everything needed to be done quicker. So if end users needed to worry or even think about governance, this ended up in a big mess. So just the first thing is, if there is going to be anything that you're going to take out of this webinar, let's say these are the two things that you should keep in mind of. So the first thing is you need to plan very good your, let's say, roadmap for the rollout of lifecycle management. And the other thing is it needs to be very intuitive for your end users. Everything else leads to some sort of parallel processes, which at the end kind of result in much harder things for you to govern. So some kind of parallel process and stuff like that. So that being said, just to go quickly into how Syskit Point can help you with these processes. So in terms of doing the, let's say, automated governance and lifecycle management, with Syskit Point, we are providing you with a platform for your IT teams to kind of shift away from doing governance tasks on day-to-day basis and become enablers, basically, within your organization for governance and lifecycle management. What that means is that IT teams stop being focused on day-to-day tasks, and they start being focused on defining policies which are automatically applied to all of the workspaces. And then Syskit Point is taking care of notifying your end users in case there is something that they need to take care of to ensure that their workspaces are in line with the policies that you have predefined. What makes kind of the end-to-end lifecycle management very intuitive for end users is the fact that basically from the creation, so from this step where end users request new workspaces, you are basically controlling that. So the workspaces and the appropriate policies are applied to them at the beginning and without let's say, end users needing to worry about that at all. So also during the workspace lifecycle management, they get notified if there is anything they need to do in order to assure that, let's say, their workspaces are compliant with your company policies and governance best practices. So for example, if you want to check if there are minimum amount of end users or let's say owners at any workspace, this is something that Syskit Point automatically checks for you. Or if there is, let's say, orphaned resources, something that all of those governance governance best practices are predefined within Syskit Point. Also, let's say, whilst these are, let's say, very good things, we need to take care of how we dispose of those workspaces. And Syskit Point also helps with that, with taking care of those workspaces if they are being utilized. And when we detect that a certain workspace is inactive, we notify the owners and let them decide if they want to keep, archive, or delete the data. So this is something that is, let's say, automatically done, and you have the control. So I'll just now briefly go through these three steps in a bit more details, and then we're going to jump straight into the demo. So in terms of the creation, from the IT side, what you need to do is define who can create new teams, groups, sites, even Yammer, and under what conditions. So you decide which information you need to gather from your end users in order to be able to successfully manage this workspace during its life cycle. You also can immediately apply different policies, as we saw, and also different best case practices for governance and the approval process for each template. And once you're done with that, that's it. So this is where your part in terms of creation of new workspaces ends. And once these workspaces are set up, the end users can use those workspaces to request those templates to request new workspaces from within their Teams app. So basically, there is no need for them to remember where they need to go to request a new workspace or any stuff like that. And once they enter the information you basically said was necessary for you to manage this, they're done. They just need to wait for their team to be approved, and they will be notified that that their workspace is ready. In the background, Syskit Point has already applied all of the policies, all of the best case practices to that workspace, and basically this makes this workspace more secure, basically from its creation. During let's say the next step is the maintenance phase, and during the maintenance phase, Syskit Point will, according to the policies that you have defined, periodically assign tasks to those owners so that they can ensure that their workspaces are in line with organizational policies. We always suggest that on top of best case practices, you do a regular access review because it basically enforces compliance. So it gives you kind of a, let's say, written audit trace that owners have validated that only the right people have access to only the data they should have access to. So that's something that is very important, and from our side, access reviews are something that is let's say a very good case practice for everyone to have. Going forward, let's say all of these workspaces, once they are no longer needed, you can kind of let your owners decide if they wish to keep or have or delete them. And once Syskit Point detects such workspaces that are no longer being used, we will notify the owners and basically support them to make the correct decision through our, let's say, intuitive interface. So that being said, we are just going to jump into the demo right now. So I'll have Alexandra help me with the demo. So yeah, Alex,
Ready.
good to have you here. Okay, so let me just jump straight into the demo. So before, let's just look at it like this. So before we start creating new templates, IT teams are usually creating, let's say, different policies. So if I wanted to create, I don't know, define all of the other policies, so just let me show you quickly. So if I wanted to go here and create a new access review policy, I can create those access review policies, which when I can, there I can basically choose what I want my end users and owners to review. This can be membership or this can be content. So I can add all of that, as well as I can say how often I want these workspaces to be, let's say, checked. So if I want, this is something that is customizable, and the only thing that I need to do now is just add a name for this policy. So let's say that I have created all of the policies that I wanted to. And in that sense, the next step for me is to say if I want to implement some kind of lifecycle management. So here at our demo, what we are doing is usually what we are providing and saying to the end users is you can define what the number of days you treat as inactive. On our demo, we said it's 30 days, but this is something that is flexible and you can define this as you wish. Also, in terms of the automation, you can select which actions you allow your end users to take. So if you don't want your end users to and owners to delete the workspaces, you can just remove that by unchecking this box here. That's just one of the examples. And also what's very important is which workspaces are going to be monitored. So we can just specify certain workspaces to be monitored, or you can specify that you want to monitor all of the workspaces. And that's completely up to you. So once you are kind of done with setting up those governance rules, you can start applying them to your provisioning templates. So for the next step is you can go into and create a new provisioning template. In terms of this, what you're doing here is basically creating what your end users will be seeing. So here is where you're saying to them, this is the information I want you to give me in order to be able to successfully manage that workspace during its life cycle. So for the sake of this demo, let's just focus on the teams, and I'm going to name this template just, let's say, this is for the demo, so let's give it some name, and we are just going to add some description. And the first thing that I'm asked by this workflow is, what's the privacy? So do I let my end user decide what's the privacy, or do I enforce the privacy to this template? So at this point in time, I'm just going to let's say leave this as let my end users decide if this is going to be a private or public workspace. In the next step, the workflow of the workflow, I'm asked, do I let my owners decide to add more owners, or do I pre-configure those owners as well? Or do I allow my end users to add more members to this team? So this is something that is configurable, and you can always let your end users decide if you want them to add more owners and more members. The third step is the sharing step. So because this is something that I might find very, very, for example, confidential, I might want only to share it within, only for people within my organization, and I want only the site owners to be able to share the files for the folders and sites. The next step of the workflow asks you for some of the, for example, sensitivity labels. So in this case, you can apply a certain sensitivity label to this workspace at its beginning. So Syskit Point will automatically pull all of the sensitivity labels you have at your, let's say, tenant already, and you can just pick them from this dropdown. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to say confidential. And now we get to the place where you can ask custom information from your, let's say, from your end users. So in the custom metadata field, let's say that I want to, for example, ask them, because this is going to be for a project, what is the project start date? And I want my end users to decide what the project start date is. And I also want to add another, because it should be ending by a certain date. So I'm just going to let my end users decide if they want to put some kind of a project end date. So in that case, once I save this, I can always add new custom fields here. But in this case, I can just create whatever kind of field is necessary for my, let's say, for my process. But all of the fields that have been created are already populated here. So just going to the next step of this process is you can set also your approval process. So it can be either manager approval, or you can say, okay, I want this to be automatically approved, or I just want a one-stage approval. But also you can create different approval processes. So you can always create new approval processes just by clicking on this link here. And at this point in time, the kind of maybe one of the last things that you need to do is you are kind of grouping those policies that you have created. You are automatically applying them to the template. So here I can just select the policies that I have created from. So for access review, which policy I want. So I want this to be reviewed monthly. Also, for the minimum number of owners, I want this to have minimum 3 number of owners, maximum 5 number of owners, and I'm going to be monitoring if this is an orphaned, let's say, resource. So once I set up, apply all of these policies, I just click confirm, and they are going to be automatically applied to every workspace that is created with this template. So there are also some settings for the email. If you don't want this to be, for example, send a welcome email, you can uncheck this here. But the last step in the process that you need to set up is the template availability. So if you want to just limit this template for a certain group of users, for example, not everyone can see it, you can do that easily here. So what condition you want to see? Do you want to limit it by a certain built-in Azure Active Directory property, or you just want to limit it to a certain group? This is up to you to decide. So once I'm done with creating all those templates, it's now for up to my end users to start creating new teams. So now Alex is going to take you through that process. So it's to you, Alex.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, just give me a sec to share my screen. All right, so as Daniel told you, I will now jump into the end user shoes. So my name is Cork, and I actually opened my Syskit Point Teams app because we designed this to make sure that it's in a familiar environment for our end users. So I just go ahead and click on the new request here because I need a new team for an internal project that is starting next week. So the first thing I'm selecting actually is the type of workspace. In this case, I already told you it's a Microsoft team, but just so you know, we also have different workspaces here, and your end users can actually see which services do they include. So to make sure that they're actually creating the right thing at the right time. These are also completely customizable by you as an administrator. You do not need to have all of this here. So now let's just go ahead and create a new Microsoft team. I'm now seeing all the templates that Daniel has created and also made available to me. So for this purpose, I'm going to select the one for the internal project. And the first thing I need to decide is the privacy. So is this going to be a team that people will need permissions to join, or will it be public, meaning that anyone in your company can join it? I will actually select public here, and I need to give a name. So let's say it's a UX workshop. You can also see that there is a naming convention here, so you can see how it will look at the end. So we have actually applied this prefix here, and you can see what the team name will look like in the end. For the description, let's just write something like this, thing for an internal education, and then I'm selecting who are the owners. I told you my name is Cork for this purpose, and I'm already made an owner here. You can see this info that it was set by my administrator. That means that Daniel has actually made the requester automatically be the owner of the team, and that cannot be changed. But I can actually add additional owners. So let me just go ahead and add Jonathan here. And if I try to proceed, you can see that I get this message that I need to select at least 3 owners, which also means that we have applied the policy of minimum owners. So I'm going to need to add another one to proceed here. The members is optional at this step. You can always add them later, but let's just add Adele for this purpose and move on to the next step. The next thing I need to decide is the project start and end date. So I know it will start next Monday, last for approximately a month. So I'm going to select that. And I also need to write a comment to my approver just to kind of justify why do we need this theme. So let's say, please accept this theme for internal education, whatever. And the final part, I actually cannot request a theme before I have accepted these terms and conditions. So this field is also fully customizable by your administrators. So you can actually add this text, you can add links to your terms and conditions, whatever is necessary. And only once the end user clicks confirm, it can actually proceed to the request. So I'm just going to go ahead and request this theme right now. And you can see it here at the top of my list, the name, the status, so it's awaiting approval. You can see the template that I use. You can see obviously that it was requested by me and who it was sent to, which can be quite handy if you need to ask someone to approve your request. If you click on View Details, you can get more details of all the inputs that you just put to your request, but also you can cancel it just in case you change your mind. I'm not going to cancel it, and you can already see that Daniel has just approved my request. And this theme is now automatically created in your environment based on the templates and everything that you decided on as an administrator. That's pretty much all regarding provisioning. Now let's move on to the other governance features that Daniel showed you. So the first one is the policy enforcement for minimum of 3 owners. So I received an email that I, as an owner of Shutterbox, need to be compliant with the minimum of 3 owners in this team. I do not have them, and I need to either add a new owner or promote an existing one. So if I go ahead and click resolve, it will lead me to Syskit Point to help me to add new owners. The next thing I can see is, for example, with the lifecycle management, if some team is not being used, in this case, Project Mercury, it was inactive for 367 days because that's something you have set up. I have 30 days to complete this task, and I need to decide whether I'm keeping it, archiving, or deleting. And finally, the access reviews. So I just got an email saying that I need to complete access reviews on 2 of my Microsoft Teams where I'm an owner, one SharePoint site and one OneDrive. I also get some information here on how to perform it with a nice video tutorial, and you as an administrator can also customize this part a bit, so you can add any text that you might need, maybe context, anything you need to make sure your users are happy to do this task. You can also change this image here and so on. And if they are ready, they can click Review Now, which leads them to Syskit Point's interface. And for the sake of this demo, let's go ahead and review the QA team. So I just select it, click Review, and it guides me through this really short wizard. On the first step, I can just get an overview of this team. I can see the owners, I can see when it was last reviewed, by whom, when was the last activity on him, who else got this task, and I can even change the owners here. But for my very first action I can take is regarding the membership. So here you're actually seeing this labeled new. So those people are actually the users that have been added to this team since the last review. You can filter to see only the new users. You can also see who has been removed since the last review, and filter by owners, members, and more importantly, the users outside of your organization. The actions you can actually take here is, for example, change the role of this user, so you can promote members to owners and vice versa. You can remove users from group. And if you're uncertain of what people have been doing with the data in this team, you can actually check their full user activities. So this report is leading you to a really detailed report on what this user has been doing in this team, and you can define the actual time span when these actions took place. Once you're completely happy with this, you're proceeding to the next step. And in this step, you're actually reviewing the content. So you can see all the files that can be shared either by giving direct access or sharing links. You can see the ones that were shared outside the group but inside your company, the ones shared externally, and as you probably know, the most dangerous links, the ones that have been shared with anyone. And then you can just go ahead and look at this tree view. And if you want to change anything, for example, this analysis 2022 file is confidential, you can simply remove the sharing link from here. You also have another view, so you can show by users, and then you can only check, for example, your external users, see where they have access. You can dive really deeply into the structure, and then you can simply remove them if they do not need to have access here. So you can remove them completely, or you can edit the permissions they have here. All right, and once you're happy with everything, the final step is basically just a summary that's showing you all the actions that you performed during this review. You can export it to Excel data sheet if needed. And once you're happy with everything, you just complete the review and just maybe record any comment you might have here. And this is where my flow as an end user ends. And now let's go back to Daniel to see what he can actually see as an admin in Syskit Point.
Okay, thanks. So let me switch the screens. And hopefully now we are seeing the Syskit Point. So here, what I can see as the admin is I can always go to the dashboard, for example, and see what's the, let's say, amount of active access reviews. This is the first thing I can do. I can also monitor the lifecycle management, but I can also deep dive into some of the details about that and see, for example, how secure is my environment at the moment. So I immediately see that only 21 out of 81 access reviews have been completed. And what are the details here? I can also just have a complete history and see, for example, what is the amount, what are the manual requested reviews, and what is the history. So history is very important because usually this is something that you need to provide for compliance. So you need to say, okay, this is the track. These were, let's say, these workspaces were reviewed at that point in time. So this is where you can have all of the history. This is where you can see it, as well as let's say access reviews. You can follow the lifecycle management as well. So overview, you can immediately see which amount of resources require your attention, what's the owner's response rate. You can view the history. You can even look at that, for example, for the last year, which resources were kept, which were archived, which are awaiting response. So this is something that these dashboards are immediately showing you. So also you can deep dive into what are those that are, let's say, awaiting response, what is the history again for all of those, and as well as that, you can also see the provisioning. So the provisioning steps, so the overview of all of the provision requests that happen. So all of that are awaiting response that were, let's say, completed. So you can also see the one that I just completed today, and all of those, let's say, are here for you. You can also on top of provisioning, lifecycle management, and access reviews, you can see what other policies violations are there, as well as its history. So all of this is audited. So you can monitor that as an admin and get a complete overview of, let's say, the entire process. So with that being said, we are at the end of the demo. So I'll jump into the presentation again to show you what are our plans for the future. So in terms of the plans for the future with the lifecycle management, let's say we see a lot of our customers that often have workspaces with similar names and for similar things. So, for example, I don't know, there is a lot of unnecessary workspaces that IT teams need to manage. The root cause of that is what we found is that, let's say, and something that our customers are always saying to us is every workspace provisioning needs to start with kind of a search. So you need to search for if there is this team already available. And this is why we are our first focus is going to be on access request portals for end users, where they will be able to request access to any, let's say, team that you as an admin made available for them to see. So that's the first thing that we are going to be doing. Also referencing back to kind of our vision where we say that we want to empower IT teams with powerful and easy tools for Microsoft 365 from resource creation to its end of life. We know very well that, let's say, not everyone is going to be using our platform for creation of new workspaces. So we want to enable those teams that are not using our platform for creation to also have the, let's say, possibilities that other teams that are using our provisioning have. So with the features in this data set here for rules for auto-applying governance policies, we are basically enabling those teams to kind of create rules which will then be able to define, let's say, based on certain metadata and built-in properties, which governance policies need to apply to that workspace, regardless how it was created. So these are some of the, let's say, items that we will be working on in a, let's say, in the foreseeable, in some of the, let's say, shorter future. And let's say, if you want to know anything more about some of that, please reach out to us on this email, feedback@syskit.com. So we can set up, I don't know, another session just to go through some of our other views, as well as if you want to participate in some of our, let's say, user, how is it called? User sessions where we go through these with our users and see how these meet their needs. So yeah, with that being said, I'll switch over to Silvio for any questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Alexandra. This was well, excellent presentation. What else to say? It's now time for the Q&A session, as Daniel mentioned. Feel free to ask your questions even during the Q&A session. I'm gonna be reading them here, but while I'm reading them, feel free to ask new ones. So yeah, Daniel, Alexandra, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's start with the first one. Okay, so it says, hi. In the template created, can we add custom channel and folders? For example, a new team with predefined templates and folders. We are currently doing this using Logic Apps.
Yeah, so how we do this is we didn't focus on that during this demo, but you have, let's say, a template ID. So you can create a team, let's say, or a template for a team within Teams admin portal. And the only thing you need to do is kind of copy paste that template ID into the provisioning template, and all of the provision and all of the teams and all of the, let's say, workspaces that are created with that template are going to follow the same template. So this is how you can do that with Syskit Point.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Another question is, can Syskit Point restrict the creation of certain templates to a defined set of users or groups or user roles?
Yeah. Okay, so of course, this is possible. So we did go through that during the demo, and admins are able to set basically the template availability. By doing this, they are actually defining which users are able to see which templates, and when submitting requests for new workspace. So this is with template availability, you are basically restricting everyone else from requesting this workspace, this template for a workspace.
Okay, thank you. And then the next one is when configuring the custom metadata fields in a template, can you as an admin enforce a certain metadata value? And how does this look like when you're an end user? Yeah, I guess you understand.
So yeah, okay. So in terms of that, yes, we didn't show that exactly in the demo, but as an admin, you can enforce metadata values. So the only thing that, sorry, what I was doing is I was clicking let your end users decide if they want to have this metadata field, but you can always leave this checkbox unchecked. And at that point in time, for example, when I was selecting, I don't know, a project start date, if you select that everyone that creates a template with this template, then for example, I don't know, you set 1st of October, every workspace created with this template will have a project start date of 1st of October. So there are some metadata that this makes more sense for, and this is why we left the admins the ability to let their end users decide if they want to check this or not, or they can enforce it. So from us, it's fully flexible.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next one, I believe even I can answer it, but I'm going to leave you, Daniel. Don't want to say anything wrong. So, can we rebrand the Syskit app to company naming and so on? I believe this has to do with this icon in the Teams app. Whoever has this, I mean, Gaurav, please set us straight if I understood wrongly. Yeah, go on, Daniel.
Yeah, for sure we can. So this is something that we have done for some of the customers already. So it will require some of the, let's say, smaller customizations, but this is something that we will help you through this process. So yes, of course, we can do
that. Okay, right. Yeah, I thought so. The next one we have is, can the naming policy define a random alphanumeric string for the URL of the SharePoint site and the alias of the shared mailbox? Do let me know if I need to repeat.
So quick answer, at the moment, no. We do kind of envisage that we will need to be working a bit more, and this is a part of the, let's say, our roadmap as well. We will need to be working more on these advanced naming conventions. So at the moment, with the naming conventions that we offer, you can set, let's say, prefix and suffix to your workspace. And this is something that you as an admin need to enter. It's not something that our provisioning template is going to automatically be adding if this was let's say, hopefully I answered this question.
Okay, yeah, David, do let us know if you have any follow-up question to that. And then another one from David. Can the naming template policy define a generic picture?
Sorry, I'm not sure that I follow this question. So maybe a bit.
Can the naming/template policy define a generic picture?
Maybe we can, let's say, get back to you on that, David, in an email, just to get a bit more information about what this is. I'm not sure that I completely understand the
Or
question.
David, feel
So
free to, while I reach the next question,
yeah.
David, feel free to maybe expand it as another question, and then we can maybe answer more directly. Yeah. Okay. Daniel, I can go to the next one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. When the team creation completion date is extended, are you able to extend the team, and would you need to that before the would you need to do that before the expiration date?
So if I understand correctly, when you're referring to the expiration date, you are referring to the, let's say you set up some expiration date in some kind of custom metadata, and then this workspace is automatically, let's say, decommissioned after that. So in terms of, if I understood this question correctly, so the workspaces are not automatically archived or automatically deleted. So this is what we let you as an admin decide if you want to keep, if you want to, let's say, let your end users decide that, or you want to do that by yourself. So in terms of managing the sprawl, this is how you can let's say, do that using the Syskit Point. So it's from our side at the moment, it's based on inactivity of the let's say workspace. So hopefully I have understood the question correctly, and if not, feel free to follow up in the Q&A section.
Yeah, sure. And David, no worries. We're gonna reach out to you and try to get a bit broader information on your question, and then answer you the best we can. And I think with this we can wrap up the Q&A session. I believe. Yeah, I'm not seeing any new ones arriving. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. I believe it was nice, at least it was for me. As mentioned, everyone who registered, just a quick info, Daniel, for the last question, we got a confirmation that you understood it correctly. So,
okay, good.
Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, so okay, so we now have David expanding on his question. Let's do it like this. So, can Syskit Point Teams app functionalities be incorporated into an existing Teams app that is used for company purposes like intranet and so on? This just arrived.
So at the moment, what we allow is to use our, so Syskit Point app is independent of, let's say, any other application. What we do have on our roadmap, and this is maybe something that we can discuss in a bit more details, is the third-party integrations. So being able to set up some kind of, let's put it like an API or something like that. So this is something that where we would like your feedback as well. So how this is, let's say, how this would be used within your organization to understand the problem maybe better. So at the moment, Syskit Point Teams app is independent, but yes, we do foresee a need for some kind of third-party integration. So if this might be one of those as well. So that's, I hope I answered this question a bit more now.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, as I was saying just before this, so everyone who has registered for this session will receive a recording within a few days or a week. If you have any further questions regarding Syskit Point, regarding absolutely any of our tools, or maybe you just want to say hi, reach out to us at sales@syskit.com, and yeah, we'll help or say hi back to you. So it was a pleasure having you all here, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ron. Bye.